We'll start off with a bow. There are certain things we do in Aikido that we kind of do them by rote, by habit, and maybe the bow might seem like that. But actually, I think it's an incredibly important practice. It can embody so much: respect, centering, focus. So just try and put that into it when you're doing your own bows, that you're respecting the fact that you've got the opportunity to come and practice, respecting the person who's in front of you, guiding you through that particular session, giving them focus and attention. You're trying to get focused yourself so you get the most out of it. It's a great example, I think, Rinal, of where you're trying to center yourself, but you're also trying to give something of yourself to the rest of the people in the class. So it's an important part of the class. So for our centering today, I want you to maybe just focus on yourself. Don't you always in these parts of the lesson? But what I want you to focus on and consider are the things that you like about yourself, the things that you're proud of, the achievements that you like to, you're quietly happy with. So just take some time and just scroll through the things, the characteristics about yourself that you like, the things that you've done well. And how does that make you feel? And we know that everything you feel is reflected in your body. So what's going on in your body as you feel warm and cozy about yourself? And hopefully all of you have got things that you can celebrate and be proud of. You may be your fiercest critic, but be an honest critic. And notice the things that you're good at as well as the things that maybe you want to change. And that positive self, that warm, glowing self is the one I want you to bring to this lesson. But I also want that clear-eyed sight that allows you to spot the things that need to change. Because that's what I think Aikido is so good at. It forces us to, if we want to get better, it forces us to look at ourselves and to notice the things that we're not good at. That perhaps we're not courageous enough, or perhaps we're too fierce, or perhaps we're a bit arrogant, or perhaps we're too shy, perhaps we have no confidence. All of us have different qualities and have strengths and weaknesses. And every strength, there can be a weak side, and every weakness can have a strong side too. You want to kind of dull down the weaknesses and build up the strengths on all of those aspects. Okay, any particular exercise that you would like to look at before I impose something on you? All right, so what we're going to look at for a start is we're going to look at a Yokomen strike. Sorry, we're going to look at a shomen strike. So basically, we should be stepping forward, lifting and cutting. Okay, where should the cut finish, in your opinion?
Waist height.
Yeah, about waist height. That's right. Unless there's an unless here, what would it be? if somebody's head's in the way, basically. Don't carry it through if somebody happens to be in the way. But mentally you do. Mentally you cut through them, because the feeling of you stopping energetically as well as physically is completely different to the when you cut right through. So maybe we can try that. So if you imagine the head height is somewhere like that, I'd like you to cut and just stop your energy there. So you're only extending to the point where your hand stops. Try that 2 or 3 times, and then imagine that your energy goes all the way down to the ground. Let's see how that changes. Okay, Renal, when you're cutting, if you want power, you've got to flex that arm a bit. So if you do a straight up and down and feel how kind of weak that feels compared to allowing that to flex and straighten as you're dropping it, yeah, that looks so much better. Does it feel a lot better? I hope it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when you can be energetic. When your body's uncomfortable with the strike, so's your mind. But when you kind of let it free flow and do what the body's designed to do, you get a lot more power and a lot more energy. Good. Okay, so how did the first one feel compared to the second one? Did it feel different? Yes? No? This is where you have to talk to me, guys and girls.
Well, I feel I'm engaging the hip at the very end of the cut.
Yeah, that's good. I think you should engage the hip, John, absolutely. But when you're not doing it with energy, when you're just making the physical motion and the shape, you're not really putting yourself into it. Did it feel differently to when you really put a bit of yourself into it?
Well, the strike then is just coming from the shoulder muscles, and that's useless. It's not coming from the body.
Okay, good. Okay, other feedback?
When it comes from the center line, actually, for me, the movement of the hips goes together with the center line. When the movement comes from totally from the center line, it's very relaxed and powerful at the same time.
Okay. When you kind of try to cut your energy to the point where that, you know, so you stopped your energy before your imagined partner's head, how did that feel to when you let the energy flow all the way to the floor, even though your hand stopped in the same place?
Yeah, it feels quite different. It's in the first case, you just feel your own energy is blocked and it doesn't reach its purpose.
Okay. How do other people feel about that? The acid test is to do this with somebody in front of you. So just cut and don't kind of mean it, and then cut like you mean it and see what reaction you get from your partner. It will be totally different. You get like you physically hit them when you let the energy go. They don't necessarily do anything if you don't let the energy go. So yeah, that's a really important aspect of the strike. So you can now follow it through, and you might as well take on board John's hint about using your hips and center line as you do this. So cut all the way through now. Okay, did you notice where I stopped? Why did I not do this?
Because you've got to come back. You're just wasting energy.
Yes, to a degree, and there's another reason as well.
You're going to lose your balance forward. You're losing your center.
That's certainly a temptation. I think I could avoid it. think I'm good enough to stay centered by dropping there, but it's going to be a mistake that some people make. There's another very practical reason.
Quentin, I feel when you stop in front of your tantien, of your hara, there is such an intense feeling of cohesiveness. Your body feels cohesive, very cohesive,
Yep.
very condensed, very powerful when you stop at in front of your hara.
Okay, good. There is another reason that I will draw to your attention. I'm going to pick up a sword now. Maybe to become more.
Or attack, I can get you.
You will be cutting your own heat off you. You don't want to be
Or
cutting
attack, I
your own
can get you.
Thank you. That's the reason. So, if I cut to here, I'm open, aren't I? Just for a little while, I'm open to a cut. If I cut to here, I'm not. I've got this protective zone around me. And my attacker is in front of me. So I want to keep my key and my weapon, if you like, but my key and my feeling in front of me and on them, don't I? Not on the floor. So that's why we stop there. But again, we stop there. It should be more or less parallel. Okay, my fingers are pointing dead forward. We don't stop there. It's for the same reason, Vitaly. So as I'm dropping, I'm making sure that my feeling stays forward. Yeah, so this is my arm shape, but I actually have it slightly cocked when I finish the cut. It's maybe easier to see with a sword, but when my backhand hits my sentium, my dantian, it's fairly easy to keep it forward, actually. It's not that hard. In fact, the sword does it all for me. Now I'm letting go here, I'm just dropping. When my hands hit my side, you'll notice that the sword is directly pointing forward. And actually, the line of my wrist is straight to the ground. So when we're cutting without, we're replicating the sword by slightly cocking the wrist. You can't create the same feeling without the sword there. It's an interesting little subtle thing I hadn't noticed before. Okay. So you're going to attack, and but you're going to also imagine that your partner steps in to throw you, and you're going to do the ukeing roll. Okay? So, if I were the person receiving this attack, I'm going to divert the attack, step in, drop down, and throw. Okay? Now you're going to pretend you're the person on the other end of that. So you must keep your energy going forwards at all times. So for example, the job does not finish here. At this point, they're dropping you down and then up, and you have to receive the technique. And if you can roll, you've got space to roll, great. If you don't feel comfortable with that, then you can bail out at this point, where you can feel that you would have lost your balance, and if there was another down, you'd be down on the floor. Everybody happy with what we've got to do? Yes. Right, so your job here is to keep your energy flowing forwards at all times. Okay, so it's not going to be reach point A, take a break, go to stage B, take a break, get to C, take a break. You want the whole thing to flow. You're assuming your partner's doing a great job doing the technique they should to take you to the floor. Okay? In your own time. Okay, great. So let's just discuss for a second or two what our job as uke is to do. What is the role of uke all about?
To look for openings in any defense, to
Yeah.
seek out openings.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is to give some energy to your partner to have something to play with. Okay. So imagine there are two of us. There's me here, and there's this bloke here, and neither one of them moves. How can we practice Aikido? Well, it's difficult to practice Aikido technique because there's nothing happening. There has to be an attack for the person to have some energy to shift. So my attack is supposed to disturb you so that if you don't get out of the way, I win. Hooray! Okay, but we're learning to stay calm and relaxed when somebody attacks us and to get out of the way or to enter or to do whatever's the appropriate thing. Okay, so if I attack, and by the way, you see this a lot in a lot of dojos, the attack stops here for a lot of people, and then the watchers are thinking, what's going on here? It shouldn't stop there. It's kind of, it becomes a bit redundant. So let's say they were doing Ikkyo, which is what we'll try next. Well, I'm blending there, and I'm trying to keep my center, and I'm trying to keep my center all the way to the ground. Because if they make a mistake here, I can come back and I can do Ikkyo. So we're going to take uke from Ikkyo, and sometimes you're going to go all the way to the mat, and sometimes you're going to pretend that your partner's made a mistake and you now have a chance to counter. So you can do your own Ikkyo if they don't take you all the way to the mat. And I'm going to challenge you to see how close to the mat you can get and still be able to get up and counter. You should be able to get above almost almost supine, lying on the mat, and still be able to get up and counter if they haven't taken you all the way down. All right? Are we happy with the exercise? Well, maybe not, but we'll give it a go anyway.
Quentin, we don't have tatami here. I cannot fall down.
Then
There's a hard floor.
absolutely fine. Then you're going to have to modify as far as you can, and perhaps your counter comes sooner. And even if you can't go all the way to the floor, you can imagine that you would be flowing into the floor, and imagine where you would be putting your knees and your feet and your body so that you could counter. Yep. Is that okay? Good. Go for it. Okay, so just so you know, some of you haven't got the space to practice this, and obviously for Tali you can't actually do it. So, I attack. They follow me up and they lead me this way, so I turn my hips. They carry on down. Maybe I get a step forward, maybe I don't, depends how directly down it is. Knee, knee, gliding into the mat, and if they don't get it right, I'm up and I'm away. But it's important to control your fall. 1. All the way around, I'm pretty centered here. I can counter very well from this place. They're going all the way down, so knee, knee. I can counter from here. Knee, knee, glide. So it's a very controlled process. We're all different heights, but let's say we're at least 5 foot from the ground. Falling from 5 feet seems like a bit of a job, but if you do it in gradual stages, it's much more controlled. So just bear in mind, it does depend on the power you're giving your partner and the power they give you back. In its most dramatic form, the first thing that hits the mat is the front of your chest. You don't get the chance to put the knees down, you've got to kick out before that happens. But you won't get that done to you unless you're quite advanced, because it is a bit of a shocker. But generally, as you're going down, you're trying to keep your center as far as possible so that you can counter at all times. Questions and feedback? If you watch John, you can see that he's quite stable as he's going through this. Yeah, he's quite bouncy. He could bounce the other way if it was necessary. Any thoughts, feedback?
This would be classed as kashiwaza.
Yeah. Although I think, John, I would say to you, potentially, every time we get on the mat, we're searching for kashiwaza. So kashiwaza is counter techniques. You're looking for the holes in your partner, in the partner, see when they're vulnerable. And it's such a fine balance, because as soon as you start to really go attack somebody vigorously, there's something that they can use back against you. So good kashiwaza, you just keep flowing backwards and forwards and no one ever hits the ground, because whoever's attacking gets their attack used against them. And that can be a real fun practice, actually. I do a kind of do-si-do from Ikkyo. So the partner does Ikkyo, now I take them to Ikkyo, they take me to Ikkyo, and so on and so forth. And it's a great exercise in you moving your center, so we might as well give it a go. So my hips are facing you, now they're facing the back wall, counter, they're facing you, I get countered, I'm facing the wall, and so forth. So I get used to turning my hips and going down at the same time. And you should feel nice and centered and in control pretty much the whole time. You shouldn't be wobbling around and feeling uncomfortable. It's always a better exercise with somebody on the other end, but it is a good exercise for practicing turning your hips through 180 degrees, because we don't want our Aikido to be like that. We want it to be like that, where our hands stay in front of us at all times. So if you think about movements like Shienagi, you want to be working on that center line that Dimitri was mentioning at the beginning. Your hands are always on your center line, and your aim is to take your partner outside of their center line, because then they're always chasing to get their center back. Do your technique right, they won't. Get it wrong, and they will. So any feedback on that?
If you're taking a technique off someone else, there's a timing element in that to seek out the best place to take the technique. That's kashiwaza. It's the timing aspect that's interesting.
Sure.
But all in all, it's Anuki's job to seek out openings and Tori's job to shut down the openings.
Absolutely. Who controls the speed of the movement?
Well, initially you have to move fast if the attacker's moving fast, but then you can slow the technique down to your control.
Okay. So I think my answer was slightly simpler than that. I was just going to say, well, actually, it's Uke who controls the speed of the movement. Because the speed of your attack determines the speed of the response. So if you come slowly, if I go very slowly to Finn and Finn tries to do his defense very quickly, it's not going to work. I'm not going to be with you because I'm going to be behind you and then you're going to be in front of me and then you'll be open. If I come at you very quickly and you try to move very slowly, you're a goner. I've got you before you've reacted. I've got you. So your pace has to match your ukes exactly. It's not for you to predetermine. And John, I'm sure you've seen this. As people go up through the grades and they're able to do movements faster, they try to show off by showing how fast they can do the movement. It's not showing off at all if they're not doing it with an uke that's able to keep up with that. This pace of the movement is always determined by the uke. So what speed should an uke go at?
What, the attacker?
Yeah.
As fast as he wants to or she wants to.
Okay. So if I'm a complete beginner and I come at John with his 50 years of experience, absolutely full on, what?
But he's a pensioner.
Maybe a pensioner, but I think you've got some power there. What do you think the likely outcome is going to be? It's going to be a car crash.
Yeah, hospitalization.
It's not going to be John that's receiving the car crash. He's going to be steering the car away from himself and slamming it into the oak tree that's next door, which happens to be the floor. If you can't take a fall and you go in like a raging bull and you receive, and he has to give you raging bull force to deal with it, and you can't cope with it, that's going to be a problem. So an uke comes in at the speed that they know they can take the defense, right? They're always trying to push the boundaries. So that's why when you come in as a first beginner, you just grab a wrist and there's maybe a gentle sensation of extending forwards or coming back. You're not walking in, you're not running in. There's no sort of mad bull aspect to it. It's very controlled because we figure you might get used to that and learn to follow from that position and be able to, you know, walk your way through a technique and hit the ground without too much damage. Yep. But once you can do it from standing, then you're walking in slowly. Once you can do it from walking in slowly, you're walking in faster, then you're trotting, then you're running, then you're going full on. As long as what?
You maintain flow.
Okay.
Don't
And
stop.
yeah, there's another really important point. It's never just about you, is it? There's somebody else who's receiving that attack. Now, if you're capable of coming in like a raging bull and you've got a beginner, what do we have again? We have another car crash because they're not going to be able to take it. So when if you know the person, you know whether you can come in full bore, half bore, or you've got to be much more gentle. If you don't know the person, how should you approach the situation? Let's go back to the driving illusion, Rianal. Perhaps it's a night for driving. If you don't know the roads, how do you drive them?
Slowly.
With caution, right? You don't know where the bends and twists and turns come. So initially, when you don't know the road, if you can't see the road ahead, you approach with caution, don't you?
Mm.
Yeah? Well, it's exactly the same in Aikido. If you don't know what's in front of you, go in slowly, test the boundaries. Once you've found the boundaries, that's where you work at. Whose boundaries? Well, it might be yours that are reached before theirs. Okay, we're going to work at you're the one who's going to be getting the major part of the learning when you've found your boundaries before theirs. If their boundaries before there, you're stretching them. You're more the teacher in that exercise. So that's us.
But when you can't see, the boundaries are very different.
That's true, Steve. But you always feel them, don't you?
Yeah, but you have to move slightly ahead, very slightly
Well,
ahead.
I have to tell you, I think even for sighted people, we're always slightly ahead of the attack, but we just have more tools to make that happen than you do.
Yeah.
If you were working with a complete beginner, you would be using far less power than if you worked with me.
Oh, you'd be very gentle and
Well, absolutely, yeah. And that's
whatever.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying. If you like, one of the definitions of Aikido is about exploring boundaries. My own and the people I work with. And I want to grow, so I'm always trying to push the boundaries. My boundaries, your boundaries, society's boundaries, whatever it happens to be. We're trying to make a better world, aren't we? Isn't that kind of one of the points of Aikido? It is for me. It is for me. Any other thoughts, comments? I feel this has been a bit of a dialogue. Not a dialogue, a monologue.
Well, I really liked what you just said in reference to the essence of Aikido, that it's really a lot about exploring boundaries, our boundaries and the other person's boundaries in the broader sense, because if we also have to deal with compassion in Aikido, this is also a boundary, where compassion for the other person and compassion for yourself, where do those two spaces meet each other? This can take a lifetime journey to explore this.
Yeah. So I had a comment on the YouTube video from last week, which was with Wendy Palmer. He's a great ambassador for taking Aikido off the mat and making a difference in the real world in all sorts of settings. And this person, who I don't know, wrote, "What's it like to work with a sixth dan that, who's talking absolute bilge or something along that, who's got no clue how to defend themselves?" It was just such a pointless comment. It showed no understanding of what Aikido can be for some. Our Aikidos, the 8 people that are in this room right now, they don't all have to be the same. Why do you practice? Your reasons for practicing might be different to my reasons for practicing. But I hope it's extending you. I hope it's growing you. That's what it's about for me. It is about growing. And even, to be absolutely fair, when I'm teaching people the martial technique, I'm still trying to bring out characteristics and improve people without them even knowing necessarily. Without even really trying. By just practicing the principles, I think it helps people find themselves and their place in the world. And I think that's quite a wonderful thing to try and do, not only for myself, but to have the opportunity to do that for others as well is what makes this such a joyful practice, and what makes people like John and I and Steve keep coming back after such a long time and keep wanting to give back, because we all know that if we give, we get. It's a wonderful thing. And Renal, that'll be kind of one of the things that we'll explore when we chat. I think that's something that you'll be able to reinforce in a very nice way.
Also, something I wanted to add, Quentin, is I found it very interesting when you were demonstrating the geometry of the body that is more favorable for being able to do a counterattack. Because sometimes, the willingness is one thing, but the geometry of the body might not facilitate the counterattack.
Yeah.
So this thing, the position with the knees that you showed is
right. You can maybe feel the hold, but if you're not in a position to do anything about it, you're not in a position to give that learning lesson. So anybody who's practiced with me for a while will know that, let's say you're doing Nikyo on me. If you don't keep Nikyo on me, I'm going to bounce back up. And maybe I'll do something to you, but I will at least be annoying and keep standing up until you learn that you keep Nikyo on me even when you're about to do the immobilization. Because if there's nothing holding me down, I'm going to get up. Why pretend that I can't? That's lying to my partner, and I'm not going to do that. Your job as an uke is to honestly reflect what you feel. not to bring your ego and show how clever you are, but to honestly reflect what you feel and to be as useful as you can in helping that other person learn. And here's a skill. Sometimes you have to do that with your lips closed and not say a word. And with other people, it's helpful to offer the odd chirrup and a bit of advice, because you can just help them a lot and you know that they're receptive. But some people hate it, really hate it. So it's another example of exploring boundaries. Who's the person in front of you? Are they the sort of person that craves help, verbal help in this case, or do they want to try and figure it out themselves? Many would say that's the best way to learn. So it's horses for courses. Right. How are we doing for time? Is that all right? Yeah, I think we're nearly at 10 past, aren't we? We nearly are. So why don't we finish with a centering? We'll just do a little bit of breathing. So you can shut your eyes, make sure you're comfortable, standing, kneeling, sitting, whatever position it is. Try to make sure that your head is sitting nicely on top of your shoulders, which is sitting nicely on top of your hips. If you're standing, that's going through to your legs and knees and ankles. If you're in Seiza, same thing. But it's a nice straight line as far as it can be. And then just begin to focus on your breathing. You don't have to do anything clever. Just notice it. And to feel the rise and fall of your chest, and your belly. And noticing how your body is settling and quietening as you do nothing but breathe. Notice the peace, the space, inside you and externally. Notice that it's happening all around you. It's not just in one place. And notice that you are the center of your own universe. And that by simply breathing, you can come back to this place and have a clear sight of what's going on around you. And we'll come back to the room. Being able to center doesn't mean you solve all problems. It just gives you the best chance. It brings you to a place where you can bring the resources that you've got fully to the situation. If it's not good enough, it's not good enough. But at least you gave it your best shot. And that's why we focus on centering. Because we want to approach every problem from a centered place so that we can give our best self and know that whatever the outcome, we don't have to look back and think, but I didn't try. I wasn't really there. It's nice to be able to look back and know that you gave it your all. And to give it another go until you get to a place where maybe you do solve the problem. That seems like a good place to stop. So thank you once again for coming. Maybe you'll be there on Thursday. We've got Kimberly Richardson with us on building the dojo community, and she's built a great dojo community. She's got a story to tell, so I look forward to sharing that with you. Okay, have a good week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.